Emma and Jack had dreamed of a fresh start, a new beginning in a house they could finally call home. When they stumbled upon the charming, though slightly dilapidated, property on the outskirts of town, they were immediately captivated by its rustic allure. The house was sold fully furnished, its creaking wooden floors and time-worn wallpaper whispering secrets of years gone by. For the couple, this was the perfect setting to build a family and settle down after years of restless searching. Their first encounter with the previous owner, an elderly man known only as Mr. Anders, set the tone for what would become a relentless nightmare. He was a gaunt figure in his late 60s, his eyes a piercing blue that seemed to look right through them, dressed in a worn, outdated suit and leaning heavily on a crooked cane. He greeted them with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Welcome to your new home," he said in a voice that was soft yet laden with an undercurrent of authority. "Take care of it, for it holds memories that should never be forgotten. And remember, my dear, my wife passed away within these walls. She still lingers, watching over every corner." Emma felt a chill run down her spine, though she dismissed it as a natural anxiety of a big life change. During the first few days, Mr. Anders made what seemed like benign gestures, bringing their mail, offering snippets of the house's long history, and even dropping by to remind them of maintenance details. But soon, his visits began to take on an eerie persistence. One crisp autumn afternoon, Emma and Jack returned from a leisurely shopping trip to find him in the front yard, methodically cutting the overgrown grass with a pair of rusty shears. The sight was unsettling. There he was, silhouetted against the fading light, tending the lawn as if he were performing a sacred ritual rather than mindlessly trimming nature's wildness. His presence felt intrusive, an unwelcome reminder that the house was not theirs to command. At first, the couple tried to brush off the oddities as mere quirks of an eccentric old man with a deep attachment to his home. They began to settle in, arranging the furniture, repainting rooms, and even planning a small garden of their own. Yet with every change they made, the house retaliated in small, insidious ways. On their very first night, while unpacking boxes in the living room, they heard soft footsteps pacing in the hallway. When Jack turned on the light, nothing was there, but the sound of footsteps continued, echoing through empty corridors long after the clock had struck midnight. Over the following weeks, the disturbances grew more pronounced. Emma would catch fleeting glimpses of a pale figure in the corner of her eye, a woman in an old-fashioned dress, her eyes filled with sorrow that defied explanation. At times, she felt a cold, almost tangible presence, as if unseen hands brushed against her skin in the dead of night. In the kitchen, dishes would be found rearranged on the counter in patterns that looked almost like desperate messages, only to vanish by morning. Even the temperature in certain rooms would plummet without warning, as if the house itself were exhaling a long-held secret. Mr. Anders seemed to be everywhere. One rainy morning, while Emma sipped her coffee by the window, she saw him standing under the eaves, his figure blurred by the downpour. He nodded silently, as if acknowledging her presence from a distance. Then, as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone, leaving Emma with an inexplicable sense of dread that clung to her like a second skin. The tension between the couple and their spectral caretaker deepened when they began their efforts to modernize the home. Jack, ever practical one, decided it was time to replace some of the antique furniture that cluttered the rooms, a collection of heirlooms that Mr. Anders had insisted should never leave the house. As they hauled the last dusty wardrobe to the garage, they discovered a series of faded photographs tucked into its back panel. The images depicted the house in its heyday, with a smiling woman standing by the window. Beneath one photograph, scrawled in spidery handwriting, was a note: "Do not forget her." Emma's heart pounded as she realized that this must have been Mr. Anders' late wife, whose presence seemed to be as intertwined with the house as the very beams and bricks. The couple's efforts to rid themselves of the old furnishings only seemed to aggravate Mr. Anders further. Each time they disposed of an item, he appeared unexpectedly, his eyes burning with a mix of sorrow and anger. One afternoon, while Jack was repainting the living room, he caught sight of Mr. Anders through the half-open door. The old man's face was contorted with a fury that was almost inhuman. "You're erasing our history," he hissed, his voice trembling with an intensity that sent shivers down Jack's spine. "This house is a living thing, and you are its desecrators." Despite Jack's protests and attempts to reason with him, Mr. Anders's presence loomed over every renovation effort like an oppressive specter. As summer turned to fall, the eerie happenings escalated to a point where Emma and Jack could no longer ignore them. One fateful night, as a thunderstorm raged outside, the power went out. In the pitch black of their living room, a series of soft, deliberate knocks echoed from the walls. With no choice but to follow the sound, the couple grabbed a flashlight and ventured into the darkness. The beam of light revealed a narrow, hidden passage behind an old bookshelf, a passage they had never noticed before. It led to a dusty, forgotten room filled with relics of the past. Old diaries, yellowed letters, and portraits of the long-departed residents of the house. In one diary, written in spidery script, was a chilling admission of a man driven mad by the loss of his beloved, his words echoing the madness they were now experiencing. Emma and Jack felt as if they were intruding on a dark family secret, one that Mr. Anders had been guarding with fanatic zeal. The discoveries only deepened their unease. At night, strange sound began to emanate from a hidden room, a soft weeping that seemed to seep through the walls. On several occasions, Emma woke to find the diary open on her bedside table, as if someone had read it and then replaced it carefully. The spectral presence of the deceased wife grew stronger. On one particularly harrowing evening, while Emma lay in bed, she saw a translucent figure standing at the foot of the bed. The figure's eyes were hollow and sorrowful, and it reached out a hand as if pleading for release. Emma's scream shattered the silence, and the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only the lingering chill of a spirit trapped between worlds. Desperate to regain control over their home, the couple sought help from local historians and even considered calling in a paranormal investigator. But each attempt to understand the house's mysteries only led them deeper into a labyrinth of haunted lore. Neighbors whispered rumors of strange lights and disembodied voices, and some claimed to have seen a gaunt old man wandering near the property long before Emma and Jack had even moved in. Every piece of evidence pointed to one inescapable conclusion. Mr. Anders was not just an eccentric relic of the past. He was a living embodiment of the house's cursed legacy. The situation reached a fever pitch on a stormy night when the couple decided that enough was enough. They planned to dispose of the remaining relics that Mr. Anders so desperately clung to, hoping that modernizing the home would break the cycle of paranormal intrusions. As midnight approached, a fierce wind howled outside, rattling the window panes and shaking the very foundation of the house. Emma and Jack, determined but terrified, began moving the last of the old furniture to the basement, where they believed it could be safely stored away. Just as they finished, the lights flickered violently and then died, plunging them into darkness. The only sound was a relentless pounding of the rain and the erratic creaks of the ancient house. In the eerie silence that followed, a soft, insistent tapping echoed through the corridors. It was coming from the front door. With a sense of dread pooling in their stomachs, they crept toward the entrance, only to find that it was locked tight from the outside. Panicking, Jack tried to force it open, but it refused to budge as if held fast by unseen hands. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the foyer, revealing Mr. Anders standing in the doorway. His normally frail frame seemed to swell with a monstrous intensity. His eyes burned with an unholy light, and his voice, now deep and resonant, boomed to the silent hall. "You dare defy the legacy of this house," he bellowed. "You have disturbed what should have remained at rest." As thunder roared overhead, he advanced slowly, each step measured and deliberate, his cane tapping a maddening rhythm on the marble floor. Emma's mind raced as she recalled the diary's cryptic warnings, and she realized that this confrontation was not merely about preserving old memories. It was a battle against forces that defied explanation. In a desperate bid to escape, the couple tried to retreat to the hidden passage they had discovered earlier, but every door they reached was inexplicably sealed. The walls seemed to close in around them, and an oppressive force filled the air, making it nearly impossible to breathe. It was as though the very structure of the house had become a living entity, determined to trap them within its cursed confines. In a final, desperate act, Jack lunged at Mr. Anders, pleading for reason, for sanity. But the old man's face twisted into a snarl, revealing a glimpse of something far more sinister than mere madness. His voice shifted, layered with guttural, otherworldly timbre, I will never let this house go. It is mine, and you are but intruders in its eternal memory. With those words, the world around Emma and Jack shattered into chaos. Furniture began to levitate, swirling in the air as if caught in a vortex of spectral energy. The portraits in the hidden room fell from the walls, their eyes seeming to follow every movement. Amidst the pandemonium, the translucent figure of the old woman materialized fully, a sorrowful, vengeful apparition that drifted silently between the swirling debris. It was as if the spirit of Mr. Anders' late wife had been awakened, drawn into the maelstrom of supernatural fury. Emma felt an icy hand grasp her shoulder, and when she turned, she saw not her husband but a gaunt, contorted face that bore a striking resemblance to Mr. Anders himself. In a moment of harrowing clarity, she realized that the madness infecting the old man might have been passed down or even shared with the house itself. The very walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent heartbeat, each thud echoing the cries of long-forgotten souls. As the spectral chaos reached its climax, time itself appeared to fracture. Emma and Jack were caught in a surreal limbo, their desperate screams swallowed by the howling wind and the relentless, inescapable presence of Mr. Anders. The couple's struggle to break free became a fight, not only for their lives, but for their very sanity, as the boundaries between the living and the dead dissolved into a maelstrom of terror and despair. When the storm finally subsided, the house fell eerily silent. In the dim light of dawn, the front door swung open as if nothing had happened. Neighbors who later approached the property could only find Emma and Jack huddled together in the living room, eyes vacant and haunted by memories too horrible to fully comprehend. Mr. Anders was nowhere to be seen, and the once ominous figure had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the lingering chill of his presence in a house that continued to pulse with a dark, unyielding energy. In the weeks that followed, the couple attempted to resume their lives, but the house had claimed them. Night after night, Emma heard whispers in the corridors, and Jack found himself unable to shake the feeling of being watched. The furniture they had so painstakingly removed was inexplicably reassembled in the exact same pattern as before, as if some unseen force was determined to restore the house's original order. Even when they tried to call for help, their phones emitted only static, as if the house itself was cutting them off from the outside world. The local legends grew, as did the whispers about the cursed home where no one could ever truly escape its grip. Some said that Mr. Anders was more than a man, that he was a guardian of an ancient curse, a spectral warden bound to house by forces older than time. Others believed that the spirit of his late wife had merged with him, creating a duality of sorrow and rage that would forever haunt the property. No one could say for sure, but one thing was certain. Emma and Jack's dream home had become a prison of perpetual torment. Even as the days turned to months, the cycle of dread never ceased. Late one night, as a pale moon hung in a starless sky, Emma woke to the sound of soft humming coming from the attic. With trepidation, she ascended the narrow staircase, each creak would echoing her mounting fear. There, in a dusty corner illuminated by a single shaft of moonlight, stood a weathered rocking chair moving back and forth in an almost hypnotic rhythm. In that moment, Emma realized that the house was alive with memories, a living, breathing archive of pain and despair that would never allow its past to fade. And so, trapped within a labyrinth of haunted memories and relentless supernatural forces, Emma and Jack continued to live out their days in a state of quiet desperation. Their once bright hopes for a new beginning had been swallowed by the darkness of a legacy they could neither escape nor understand. The old man's voice, now reduced to a faint echo, still resonated in the corridors, a constant reminder that some houses are not meant to be freed, and that some histories, no matter how painful, are destined to repeat themselves ad infinitum. In the end, the house stood as a monument to madness, a cursed relic that had claimed its keepers and bound them to an endless cycle of torment. And though the world outside moved on within those oppressive walls, the nightmare endured, a chilling testament to the power of memory, obsession, and the inescapable pull of a past that refuses to die.
That's it for tonight's tale. But don't worry, there's always more where that came from. Be sure to stay tuned for even more nerve-thrilling horror stories every single week. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us here at the Hollow Horror. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, stay safe. Or stay scared. See you next time.